The U.S. ambassador to Zimbabwe, Pamela Tremont, has met with Mangaliso Ndlovu, the Minister of Industry, I think. They met, and it's clear that there is a bit of like exploration taking place by the Americans. The Americans have got two strategies that I have spent months talking about a few years ago, from 2022, when there was Secretary Blinken, and now I've spoken a lot about the strategy of the Americans in Zimbabwe. So I want you guys to just go back at a time when I talk about. So if you go to Gambakwe, you're going to see two videos that I did. So there are two strategies. You can look at them here when you've got time. So what's wrong with the USA strategy in Africa? That is, Secretary Blinken presented a strategy on Africa. If you go down this page, you're going to see that I showed you a USA strategy towards Africa. You can see what he said there, Secretary Blinken. And then you also see that the US Embassy has created what is called an integrated strategy for Zimbabwe. So they produced that in 2022. And we've gone into depth into what the Americans want to do in Zimbabwe. And the current ambassador is doing very, very well. She's engaging. But I'll obviously unpack what she needs to do better. So she has yesterday met with the Mangaliso Ndlovu, and this is what she said when she met him. Let me quickly show you the video.
My focus since I arrived here last July has been to increase trade between our two countries to advance our mutual prosperity. And we have a really good partnership with the Honorable Minister. We talked about things that we can do to improve the investment climate so that high quality investors from the United States, but also from other countries, are more attracted to Zimbabwe and increase their investment here. Also, a lot of room for growth. And so we need to figure out what the issues are that are preventing more companies from coming here so that we can solve them together, and they will find Zimbabwe the most attractive investment destination in the world.
Okay, very interesting. So if you unpack what she said, she's engaging with the Zimbabweans. She wants to see how they can improve the environment. She wants to see why Americans are not coming to Zimbabwe. And you must put that into perspective of what I said 2 years ago, which is to say, what are the security interests of the United States in Africa, and what are the business interests of the United States in Zimbabwe? So you must understand those two things. And then what are the political projections of America in Zimbabwe? So let's start with the security interests. The situation in Mozambique is critical. There is terrorists inside of Mozambique. So the Americans want a strong Zimbabwe so that they can have a buffer in a properly trained army that can operate inside of or protect their interests in Africa, almost as if you've got a firewall between Mozambique and the rest of Africa. So you don't want a weak Zimbabwe, a weak Mozambique, a weak Zambia. You want a strong Zimbabwe, a strong South Africa that will push back. But SADC is very, very weak. So those are the security interests of the United States, how to prevent the jihadists from moving up north and meeting with the other jihadists who are moving down south. So you don't want that, and that is the security interest. How does the United States engage the Zimbabwe National Army? And they've removed Zedera. You can go and look at what I said 2 years ago. Then when you look at the political interests, how do you transform Zimbabwe to a democratic country without Zedera? Very important. That is why she's engaging with the people like Mangaliso, people like Mnangagwa. She has met Mnangagwa, if I'm not mistaken, a few weeks back. So it's important to engage with Mnangagwa. However, she's got no access to the opposition. So if Ambassador Tremont wanted to meet Chamisa, I don't think that would be possible. And it won't be looked at in a good light by the Zimbabwean government. So clearly, the Zimbabwean government is preventing the opposition from meeting the diplomats. So the picture that she's getting is only from the government. As long as she's talking to government people, they're happy. But the moment she tries to meet Chamisa, it's going to be bad. It's going to be a fight. Then thirdly, we have the AI related access to minerals, which I talked about 2 years ago. You can go and check it out. There's a need to access the minerals that are in Zimbabwe. A new mineral has been discovered in Zimbabwe, whose name I currently can't pronounce, which is thousands and thousands more worth than an lithium. So there is a lot of minerals inside of Zimbabwe, inside of Mozambique, which are needed for AI. And Zimbabwe is a stable country. It's not like DRC. If you want to mine here in Zimbabwe, very quick, you get your minerals that you need for AI and everything's done. However, the problem in Zimbabwe is financially, the country is not doing well. And also, you can't take your money out. If you invest in Zimbabwe, you sink your money into the ground. You can't invest into Zimbabwe. Any American investor that has come to Zimbabwe will tell you what I'm telling you. They are being asked to pay a commission, or they're being asked to pay a facilitation fee, or they're being asked for shareholding when they get into Zimbabwe. Totally corrupt country. And the American values and the laws of America don't allow a corrupt deal. So there are actual laws that don't allow an American to do a corrupt deal in another country. So if you're an American, you can't go and then say, I'm paying a facilitation fee. That is illegal in America, and you can actually get arrested if you do that. So those are the barriers that are preventing young Americans from coming into Zimbabwe to invest. When they come, they face these problems and they can't come back and invest. No single American that has come to Zimbabwe has come back. You've seen the delegations, they have not come back to invest. So what is needed is to go back to the strategy, the integrated strategy, and create a new one. So 2022, they made a strategy. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they need to be working on another strategy now, a 5-year strategy for Zimbabwe. Americans are very methodical, and they are almost always correct in their projections. I've shown you the projections on Chamisa done by American professors. So what they need to do right now is to create a new strategy, and the strategy of America and Zimbabwe must be based on values. So they mustn't lose their values and try to engage with Mnangagwa and compromise. Mnangagwa is wrong for Zimbabwe. We need a new ZANU-PF player inside of Zimbabwe who is going to engage with the Americans. And then that new player is going to work with the opposition. We have a proper transition period of about 10 years, during which there needs to be funding. So Zimbabwe needs about $100 billion for the economy to come back to normal. And that is in rail, in manufacturing, in mining, in industry. That's what you need. So now listen again to what she said in the context of what I've just said.
My focus is, since I arrived here last July, has been to increase trade between our two countries to advance our mutual prosperity. And we have a really good partnership with the Honorable Minister. We talked about things that we can do to improve the investment climate so that high quality investors from the United States, but also from other countries, are more attracted to Zimbabwe and increase their investment here. Also, a lot of room for growth. And so we need to figure out what the issues are that are preventing more companies from coming here so that we can solve them together. And they will find Zimbabwe the most attractive investment destination in the world.
Okay, so the partnership part, that is what is important. We need a new partner in Zimbabwe. The Americans are ready, but the problem is there's no partner in Zimbabwe. And what this means is that the ambassador must move from government to government engagement, and we need a structure for business to business engagement. So while these issues are being sorted, political issues, we need a structure, a private sector structure that can deal with investments by Zimbabweans and Americans. So Zimbabweans partnering Americans, not through the government, but through a private structure. So that is lacking. When I went to America a few months ago, I was there for the elections. I tried to engage with a few Americans on business. I met some guys in media. It's very hard for them to understand what is happening in Zimbabwe, because all the stories that are coming out of Zimbabwe are bad stories. So you got Blessed Mhlanga arrested for 72 days, people being incarcerated for days and days. You've got Mnangagwa going for a third term. There's no American who's going to go into such a country. However, what is needed is now a way of connecting Americans to Zimbabweans. And that needs a place, a central place or a structure where these two private sectors can meet, not only on a once-off basis, but on an ongoing basis. And I don't know what that kind of structure can be, but it could be a center in America where Zimbabweans actually have a place where an American doesn't have to fly to Zimbabwe, and they can just meet there with the Zimbabweans business people, and they can engage. There are so many opportunities that Americans would want, and then Zimbabweans will have a place where Americans can walk and talk to Zimbabweans business people, capital. They can talk to Zimbabweans over there. So that structure is required, but it can be through government because of the corruption and the request for fees, commissions, facilitation fees, which is happening through the Zimbabwe government. So that is required a center inside of America where Americans can walk and find out what to invest in, finalize all the deals without even having to travel to Zimbabwe. Because when you walk into Zimbabwe, it's like you're walking into a war zone. There's nothing for an American to see. Why would an American want to invest in a country where they can't even drive their car? But that is where the opportunity is, where young Zimbabweans know what needs to be done, and they can go over to America and connect. And then you also need someone that can explain the opportunity in Zimbabwe, because America needs to be in Zimbabwe. So someone needs to be able to explain the opportunity on an ongoing basis. And you need to identify a match. Who are the people that want to invest in Africa? There are so many banks, young black banks in America that can invest in Zimbabwe. You also have big capital that can invest in Zimbabwe. So many things that you can do. Unlike the Chinese come in, they take the raw material and they go. The Americans normally invest through a system approach. So Americans will come in and they'll create a system, and they will have a long-term partnership with you, which is different from most of the other countries. So very interesting possibilities between America and Zimbabwe. But I believe that the relationship needs to move away from the government level to a private sector level, which is, as I say, a structure inside of the US, probably New York, where Americans can approach investors from Zimbabwe and they can matchmake over there. That is something that needs to be pushed by the Americans, not by the Zimbabweans, because the moment you put Mnangagwa in it, he's going to ask his people to look for facilitation fees. And if you don't pay a commission, you'll never be able to enter the market. Right, I think I've covered that. One of my favorite topics. I like it. I like talking about the Americans. Now, let's quickly go to other things. What else am I missing? In South Africa, there is a